So, I know I say all this stuff about celebrities, and I actually mean it. Because a lot of celebrities push just kind of the worst agendas, the absolute worst agendas, especially when we're talking about rappers. Um, but there are, a couple of celebrities that, kind of I have a soft spot for. And one of those celebrities has always been, Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson, especially Michael Jackson more so than Janet Jackson. If you listen to Michael Jackson's music, it's he had a voice like no other. He was an entertainer like no other. I think easily the greatest entertainer of all time. We'll never have another Michael Jackson. And so I get it. I get it. He reached a certain level of success where it's likely at some point he involved himself with people that he probably shouldn't have. But when you look at Michael Jackson and you look at his work, he's not pushing the gay agenda. He's not pushing the ratchet agenda. He's not pushing the abortion and feminist agenda. And neither did Janet Jackson. Neither has Janet Jackson ever done such a thing. They've never been the type to push these radical and evil agendas. Now, I'm sure if you listen to, I constantly listen to Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. I'm sure it's problematic in some ways, just like any other person, just like any other celebrity. But Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson have always been people that I have personally liked. And when these comments came out with Janet Jackson and Janet Jackson saying that she heard that Kamala Harris isn't black, which we all know Kamala Harris isn't black. I mean, are you really going to sit here and argue that Kamala Harris is black when she's been proclaiming herself as Indian all these years? Now all of a sudden she's black because it's politically advantageous. That's the only time she's black, when it's politically advantageous. There's actually an interview. I should have included it in this video. I might do a video about it later today. But there's actually a video with Kamala Harris with Mindy Kaling, the girl from The Office. And in that video, Kamala Harris says, I'm Indian. I have an Indian heritage. Kamala the fucking chameleon. That's why I say we need to stop all this interracial shit. It makes shit confusing. You pick a fucking race. You don't get to be two races. Everybody else got to be just one. You don't get race privileges. That's what I call half-breed privilege. That's what Kamala Harris has. Kamala Harris has half-breed privilege. Because I notice this with a lot of half-breeds and quadroons and all that kind of stuff. When they're around a black group, they identify as black. When they're around a white group, they identify as white. No, bitch, pick a side. You don't get to fucking do that. So, I mean, we can easily stop that if you guys stop procreating with people of other races. If you're white, get with the white woman. If you're black, get with a black woman or another black person or another white. Stop the interracial nonsense. We can all get along without miscegenating. We can get along with white people without fucking them. But a lot of white people do have jungle fever, though. Yeah, you ever seen those white women? I just can't get enough of big black cock. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I made a video yesterday. I just can't stand white women. I don't mean to get caught up on a tangent on this, but with this whole Janet Jackson situation that's going on, it made me I don't like the word research. When people say, do your research, shut the fuck up. I did a Google search, which is hardly research. I did a few Google searches about, the Jackson family, Janet Jackson's relationship to Donald Trump. Because I was thinking, why would Janet Jackson, throw this shade at Kamala Harris? And she definitely threw a little shade at Kamala Harris. Well, come to find out that Michael Jackson and Donald Trump actually had a pretty decent relationship with each other. Donald Trump, as we're going to see, I'm going to play a clip of it, was one of very few defenders of Michael Jackson. I'm old enough to remember a time when Michael Jackson was a national laughingstock. I remember when every time you turned on TV, it seemed like there was another person making fun of Michael Jackson. And Donald Trump never did that. Donald Trump was a stark defender of Michael Jackson. I found out that at some point, Michael Jackson actually stayed in Trump Tower. I never knew that. He used to live in Trump Tower. Michael Jackson actually spent time with Donald Trump's children, Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, and what's the other kid's name? Eric and Donald, I think the other kid. Whatever. Michael Jackson actually spent time with Trump's children. I didn't know that. So now we're going to look at some clips of, and whenever I found this out, before we look at the clips, whenever I found all this out, it kind of it kind of let me know, this is why Janet Jackson threw shade at Kamala Harris. You know, they have this ongoing, Michael Jackson had this very strong relationship with Trump, and it's loyalty. It's which I can understand. If someone defended my brother, you know, during a time when nobody stood by his side, and you know, my brother had a staunch defender, and then my brother passed away, and you know, this person is running for president, I'd probably defend that person too. I'd probably throw shade at their political opponents, just a little shade. You know, it's not like, this is the thing people aren't getting. It's not like Janet Jackson came out and just wrecked Kamala Harris. All Janet Jackson really said was she doesn't believe, she heard that Kamala Harris isn't really black. That's it. That's the only comment. And then now she stood by the comment. She didn't apologize later. And I think a lot of people are mad about that. But, you know, that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. The Democrats need you to think like them. You have to think like them, or else you're no longer a part of their cult. You'll be shunned. You'll be shunned. Shame on you. But nonetheless, we're going to look at this clip, which I found very interesting, of Donald Trump putting up, you know, pretty strong defense of Michael Jackson. Now, the whole video is 9 minutes and 15 seconds long. I don't think we're going to look at the whole of it, but we'll definitely see parts of it. Take a look at this.
Well, I knew Michael very well, and he was a special guy. He was with me many, many times at Mar-a-Lago in particular, in Palm Beach, and so many unbelievable weekends took place with Michael, especially in Palm Beach, Florida. And to lose Michael is amazing, truly iconic, a great, great entertainer, the best I've ever seen. He was all excited about his comeback. He was sold out all over, thousands and thousands of seats, all sold out. And it didn't take place till next July, and yet he was sold out. He was telling me all over. And it's very sad. Michael did a lot for charity, and if I ever needed him for something, if he had to come like tonight to Police Athletic League, not that he was thrilled about it because the last 10 years were tough for him, but he'd always be there. Michael was very loyal to his friends. The thing people don't really know, we all know he was an unbelievable entertainer. You know, you had Elvis Presley, you have Michael, you have very, very few like it, but Michael was a very, very smart guy. A lot of people don't realize that he was really smart.
What do you make of this whole story that's out there? Can you believe it? You know him.
I don't believe it personally.
Michael's been a long-time resident of Trump Tower, and last night the Donald strongly reiterated his defense of Jackson with Larry King by going after the accuser's mother.
She's had plenty of experience at going after people, and she goes after them viciously and violently, and I saw a story and I read another story about some of the things she's done. And I don't believe it.
But you know what it's like when an indictment comes down.
It's tough.
It's presumption.
It's tough. It's tough to win. But I have a feeling he's going to win, Larry.
I had no idea he'd be that strong defensive of him. And good for Donald, you know. You know, we do believe in innocence in this country, hopefully.
He lives in the building, and he's been a total gentleman, and we've never seen anything like what we're reading about.
Donald Trump, the king of New York real estate, is actually a landlord to the king of pop. Billy Bush spoke to the Donald in the very tower where Jackson owns a residence.
What do you make of this whole story that's out there? Can you believe it? You know him.
I don't believe it personally. There are many people that feel that Michael is being used in a way to make money. I just know that Michael Jackson's been with me for a long time, and we've never had a problem.
Donald Trump, old friend, real estate mogul, star of Celebrity Apprentice. How well did you know Michael, Donald?
Well, Larry, as you know, I knew him very well. He was a great guy. He was actually a very, very smart businessman. He was somebody that was very special. He lived in Trump Tower for an extended period of time in New York, and right next to me, actually, and so I got to know him very well. He would go down to Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach a lot. In fact, that's where he was with Lisa Marie Presley when it first came out. And he was there for a very long period of time, but he would go down often.
When was the last time you spoke with him?
Probably a year ago, Larry. You know, Michael was a much different guy in the last 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years than he was. I always view it as two Michael Jacksons.
How do you mean?
Well, you had Michael from, let's say, up till around the age of 35, and that was somebody, the greatest entertainer I've ever seen. And then you had the later version of Michael, who was much more reticent. He was much shyer. I mean, he was just a little bit of a different guy. And I really knew both Michaels. He was a terrific guy. He was a wonderful guy. But he lost a certain amount of confidence in the last 10 years. I mean, he went through a lot, including some very, very bad doctors.
And what about the business aspect of this? Is he going to be worth a lot more gone than here?
Well, he's going to be worth a lot of money. He's got all of his albums are #1 now. I mean, he's just knocking the hell. Probably they've never seen anything like it. And I guess the debt will be paid off pretty quickly. But he really was. He was a great businessman. And I talked to him. He'd come into my apartment, and we talk a lot about business. And as an example, he met with Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney was telling him, and this is a pretty well-known story, but Michael told it to me. Paul McCartney mentioned that he was going to try and buy back the other half of the Beatles' music, and Michael then went out and bought it. Now, you could say it's not very nice, and I've heard that Paul has always been very angry at Michael for doing that, but perhaps Paul shouldn't have mentioned it. Perhaps that's just business and the way it is, but he really was a very, very good businessman and a very smart guy.
Well, you're sharp.
All right. So you hear that? I mean, Donald Trump just putting up a great defense for Michael Jackson. He called Michael Jackson very smart, talked about Michael Jackson's business acumen. I didn't realize that these two were such good friends as they were. And so that probably has a little bit to do with Janet Jackson, throwing a little bit of shade at Kamala Harris. But what makes me mad about this whole thing is that, how quickly so many people are willing to throw Janet Jackson under the bus for Kamala Harris. Janet Jackson has been with the black community for at least since the days of Good Times. You remember she was Penny from Good Times. That was what, the 70s? It's been 50 years, all her life. She's been entertaining black people. I don't know if she's ever done anything for black people. I really don't care what she's done for black people. She's been an entertaining woman. And she's been, just this epitome of class for black women. Janet Jackson doesn't get out there shaking her ass. Now, she did have that one wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl, but she's been the epitome of class. I don't think I've ever heard her cuss. She doesn't. Well, no, she did cuss in that one song, Black Cat. But it's okay. It's okay. She's not going out cussing, drinking, getting high, getting drunk, and all that. If every black woman was like Janet Jackson, we'd have a much better community. And, it just makes me angry to see people throw Janet Jackson under the bus for nasty Kamala Harris, who isn't even black. Kamala Harris, which is the epitome of a terrible woman, not even a black woman, slept her way to the top, prosecuted black women when their kids were sick and they weren't able to take their kids to school. I need to do a video on that. There's a video of when Kamala Harris was prosecutor. She prosecuted a poor black woman whose kid had a sickle cell anemia, and she wasn't able to take the kid to school. You know how terrible sickle cell is. I've known people. You probably known people with sickle cell. It's a very terrible disease. And this woman wasn't able to get her daughter to school because some days her daughter would just not feel well. Kamala Harris chose to prosecute that black woman. This is the person that we're willing to throw Janet Jackson under the bus for nasty Kamala Harris. I think it's sickening. Now, at the end of the day, these are celebrities. I don't give a shit either way. It doesn't affect my life one way or the other. Hell, if Janet Jackson saw me right now, she'd probably say, fuck me. She doesn't know me. I know of her. I don't know what she's like in her personal life. But from what I see, from what's out there, Janet Jackson seems like a very sweet, a very nice, a very classy woman. And I hate to see her get thrown under the bus or her get canceled and socially shunned by the Democratic cult, the satanic cult of the Democratic Party. I hate to see it. But nonetheless, let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. And remember to like, subscribe, share, and as always, stay woke.